I don't usually post stuff like this, but I've been reading this subreddit for a while now, and I think I've finally reached a point where I need to get this off my chest. My name's Tyler. I'm 29, and let me tell you, there's nothing quite like being the invisible child in a family that pretends you don't exist unless you're useful. I used to think I was just imagining it, that maybe I was being overly sensitive or holding grudges over little things. But Thanksgiving this year was the kind of moment that makes your stomach turn. The kind of moment where time slows down and you see everyone in the room for exactly who they are. Let me back up. I'm the youngest of two. My sister, Michelle, is 31 and has always been the golden child. I used to think it was because she was older, more responsible, smarter, whatever. That's what I told myself growing up. Michelle got straight A's, student body president, full ride to college, law school, internship at a big firm. Our parents never missed a chance to brag about her. There were framed photos of her debate trophies, her graduation portraits in every room. Me? I got a good job, bud, if I made it to class on time. There's one photo of me in the house. It's from 8th grade. I've got braces, a bowl cut, and I'm half blinking. Now don't get me wrong, I wasn't some kind of slacker. I worked hard, just not in the way they valued. I went to a state college, majored in IT, took out loans, and started working before I even graduated. While Michelle was still being handed support and second chances, I was paying rent, fixing my own car, building a life from scratch. No big celebrations. No, we're so proud of you dinners. Just radio silence unless they needed something. The funny thing is, they've needed something a lot lately. My dad lost his job about 2 years ago. Company downsizing. He was in his mid-50s and had no backup plan. My mom worked part-time at a boutique, but it barely covered groceries. Suddenly, I was getting texts again. Not long ones, not emotional ones, just things like, "Hey, can you help cover the electric bill this month?" Or, "We're short on rent." It started small, a couple hundred here and there. Then it turned into a regular thing. I started sending them $1,200 a month, every month, for almost a year and a half now. No complaints, no drama. I didn't even tell my girlfriend the full amount because I didn't want to sound resentful. It was just expected, and I guess deep down, I still wanted to believe they'd appreciate it. Maybe even say thank you. Spoiler, they never did. Fast forward to this Thanksgiving. I almost didn't go. My girlfriend, Mia, warned me not to. She said, "You know how they make you feel. Why put yourself through that again?" But part of me still clung to this stupid hope that things would be different. That maybe this time they'd acknowledge me. Maybe just a little. I flew back home the night before. Took the red-eye, rented a car, brought a bottle of really nice wine I couldn't afford. When I walked through the front door, the house looked exactly the same. Down to the Thanksgiving banner Mom always reuses and the framed photo of Michelle shaking hands with some judge at her law internship. I barely had time to take off my coat before Mom ushered Michelle into the living room with, "There she is, the woman of the hour, and a glass of sparkling cider." Michelle beamed. She always did. Hair curled, blouse pressed, that confident tilt of her chin like she knew she was the favorite. And she did. She always did. "Tyler," Dad said, glancing up from the TV. "Didn't expect you to make it." No hug. No smile. Just that. "I told you I was coming," I said. "Guess I forgot." I bit my tongue. I'd been awake for almost 24 hours. I wasn't about to start a fight 5 minutes in. I helped Mom with the green beans, tried to make small talk with Michelle, who acted like I was a stranger who wandered in off the street. She talked about her new condo, her new promotion, how she was getting flown out to LA for some conference. Mom and Dad hung on to every word like she was reading scripture. I mentioned that I'd just finished developing a new internal software system for a client that netted my company its largest contract yet. Crickets. Mom actually changed the subject mid-sentence. Dinner was at 6. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, the works. We all sat around the same oak dining table we've had since I was 10. I took my usual spot at the end, opposite my dad. Michelle was to his right, Mom to his left. As everyone started filling their plates, the conversation turned, as it always did, toward Michelle. How lucky they were to have her. How proud they were. How grateful. Then my dad raised his glass and said something I'll never forget. "To Michelle," he said, lifting his wine. "Without her, we'd be screwed. She's the only reason we're still afloat." I froze, fork midair. "Here's to our girl," Mom added. Michelle laughed, humble bragging. "Oh, it's nothing. I'm just glad I could help." I looked at them, waiting for some kind of correction. A follow-up. A joke. Nothing. My chest started tightening. I could feel it rising up from my gut like bad indigestion. I set my fork down. What do you mean, only reason? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Dad raised an eyebrow. Exactly what I said. Michelle's been carrying a lot lately. I glanced at Michelle. How much have you been sending them? She blinked. Excuse me. You said you've been helping. Financially. How much? I gave them $2,000 last Christmas, she said cautiously, to help with the furnace. I laughed under my breath. My heart was pounding now. Then what did you do with the $1,200 I've been sending every month for the last 18 months? There was a pause. Not silence. Not a casual lull. A vacuum. Like someone pulled the plug on the air in the room. Michelle dropped her fork. It clattered against the plate. My mom flinched like she'd been slapped. Dad leaned back, eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? I stared straight at him. You really want me to spell it out? $1,200. Every month. Since May last year. From me. He scoffed. That was a gift. Not support. A gift? It was paying your mortgage. It was keeping your lights on. It was covering the water bill. How is that not support? You never said it was a requirement. I never said it because I assumed you were decent enough to at least acknowledge it. Mom started shaking her head. Don't do this, Tyler. Not here. Why not here? Because it's inconvenient? Because it makes Michelle look less like your savior and more like the cherry on a cake I already baked? I said don't, she snapped, voice rising. Dad stood up. You're making a scene. You made the scene, I said, standing too. I've been footing the bills while you sang Michelle's praises like I was just some guest at your table. Mia always said I'd never get closure until I stopped pretending I didn't care. But in that moment, I cared too much. I cared enough to feel that sting in my throat, that shake in my hands, that heat behind my eyes I hadn't let out in years. And the worst part? I could see that they were more shocked that I'd spoken up than they were by what I said. I looked at Michelle. She wasn't gloating anymore. She looked like she'd just been hit with a brick. And that's when my mom started screaming. I stood there, not moving, not blinking, just watching my mom unravel in front of everyone. Her voice had taken on that high-pitched, breathless tone she only used when she felt truly out of control. How dare you bring this up right now? In front of your sister? During Thanksgiving dinner. Her hands were shaking, and I realized she wasn't just angry. She was embarrassed. Embarrassed that the neat little illusion she'd worked so hard to keep intact had just cracked wide open. Yeah, I said, my voice lower now. What a shame. Must have been hard lying this whole time. Dad barked out a laugh, but there was no humor in it. It's not lying. You offered to help. That's different. I offered to help because I thought you appreciated it, I said, feeling the words scrape their way out of my throat. I didn't realize I was just some anonymous donor you could forget existed. Tyler, Michelle said, her voice more unsure now. Why didn't you tell me? I turned to her. Why would I? So you could tell them how to better guilt me into sending more. Her mouth dropped open. That's not fair. No. What's not fair is sitting here while everyone clinks glasses for you like I've been doing nothing for 2 years. Dad slammed his hand on the table. That's enough. Sit down. You don't talk to your sister like that in this house. I stared at him. You mean your house, that I've basically been paying for? Don't push it, he growled. Oh, we're past pushing it. The room felt frozen in that weird, chaotic way, like nobody knew what came next. Like everyone was holding their breath and waiting to see who would break first. And somehow I did. Not in the way they expected. No screaming, no plates thrown, but something inside me buckled. I sat down, slowly, chest tight. My appetite was gone. I looked at the food in front of me and felt like I was staring at plastic fruit. I'd been so stupid. Flying out here. Buying that expensive bottle of wine. Telling myself maybe this time would be different. It never was. And I guess deep down, I'd known that. But I kept trying. I always kept trying. I barely touched my plate after that. The rest of the meal passed in weird spurts of silence and forced conversation. Dad made a show of bragging about Michelle again. This time about her sharp instincts and how lucky any company would be to have her. It was like he was trying to prove a point. Michelle mostly stared at her napkin. Mom went back and forth between glaring at me and wiping her eyes like she was the victim in some tragic family betrayal. Eventually, I excused myself and went upstairs to the guest room, formerly my childhood bedroom, now stripped of any evidence I'd ever lived there. The posters were gone. The bookshelf was empty. Just a twin bed, a nightstand, and a lamp that flickered if you touched it wrong. I sat there on the edge of the bed for a long time, hands in my lap, phone buzzing every so often with texts from Mia. You okay? Do you want me to call? Baby, just say the word, and I'll book a hotel for you right now. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready to talk. I needed to sit in the storm a little longer. Around 11, there was a knock. Michelle poked her head in, eyes soft, almost apologetic. Hey, she said. Can we talk? I nodded. She came in and sat on the opposite edge of the bed, like we were two strangers forced to share space at an airport lounge. I didn't know, she said. I figured. No, I mean really. I had no idea you were helping them like that. They never said anything. I looked at her. You believe me? She nodded. Yeah, you're not the type to make stuff up. That surprised me. Michelle rarely gave me the benefit of the doubt. Ever. I sighed. I guess I always assumed they'd tell you. I mean, you're their favorite. She winced. Tyler, it's fine. I'm used to it. No, it's not fine, she said. I'm not trying to be their favorite. I never asked for that. But you never turned it down, either, I said, a little harsher than I meant to. She looked down. I didn't know how much it hurt you. I don't think they care how much it hurt. We sat there for a minute. Just the hum of the heater and the creak of the old bed frame. Then she said something I didn't expect. I've been thinking about moving, she said. Like, really far. I've got a friend in Boston who offered me a spot on a startup. I blinked. What about the condo? Sublease it. You just leave? I'm tired too, Ty, she said. Everything I do, they blow it up. They tell me I'm perfect, and I'm not. They want to live through me, and I'm exhausted. It hit me then. She might have been the golden child, but she was still on a leash. Just a shinier one. She squeezed my hand before leaving the room. I don't think we'd held hands since we were kids. After she left, I lay down, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it click with every slow spin. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I packed my things before anyone else was up. I figured I'd leave early, grab a coffee on the road, and catch an earlier flight home if I could. I walked downstairs with my duffel and saw Dad in the kitchen, sipping his coffee. He didn't look surprised to see me. You running away? He said, not looking up. I'm leaving, I said. You'll have to get by on your own this month. He smirked. Real mature. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. But just as I reached for the knob, he said something that made me stop. You think you're better than us now, huh? Just 'cause you make a little money. I turned slowly. No, I think I'm done pretending that I don't matter. He sneered. You'll come crawling back. You always do. I opened the door and stepped outside into the cold, crisp morning. The sky was pale pink, and the frost on the car windshield shimmered. For a second, I just stood there, staring at it. Then I got in and drove. But that wasn't the breaking point. That came 2 weeks later. It started with a voicemail. I'd been back home for a while, trying to decompress, talking things through with Mia, telling myself I was finally free from the emotional black hole that was my family. Then one evening, I saw a missed call from an unknown number. I usually let those go, but curiosity got the better of me. I listened to the message. Tyler, this is Janet from Wells Fargo Mortgage Services. We're just following up regarding the joint account associated with your parents' home. We noticed a change in the auto payment routing and wanted to confirm authorization. Please give us a call back. My stomach sank. Joint account? Auto payment routing? I never put my name on anything. I was very careful about that. I called the bank immediately, asked for clarification. The woman was polite but firm. Yes, sir. You're listed as a co-signer on the mortgage. The account was changed last week. The system still has your name as the primary backup on file. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. I told her there had to be a mistake. She double-checked. Read my social security number back to me. My full name. My date of birth. I called my dad. No answer. I texted him. Did you put my name on the mortgage? Nothing. I called Michelle. She picked up right away. What's going on? She asked. Dad used my name to co-sign the mortgage. Without telling me. There was a beat of silence. Oh my God. I have no idea how he did it. But it's there. And if they default, you're on the hook. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. My hands were shaking. Ty, she said. You need to talk to a lawyer. Right now. I hung up and just sat there on the floor of my apartment, back against the couch, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a group text. Family group chat. Dad. Tyler, I need you to stop overreacting. It was just a safety net. You're acting like we robbed you. Mom, we wouldn't have done it if we weren't desperate. Dad, it's not like we took money. Your name is just there to help us qualify. Mom, this is why we never tell you anything. You always make drama. Michelle, are you serious right now? You forged his name. That's illegal. Dad, no one forged anything. Tyler agreed. Don't you remember, Ty? You said you'd always support the family. That this house was our legacy. I stared at the screen, pulse thumping in my ears. I didn't remember saying anything like that. Because I never did. And that's when it hit me. They'd planned this. Maybe not from the start. Maybe it started with a favor, a small lie, a tiny signature that didn't look important at the time. Or maybe they'd forged something after all. But they'd done it behind my back. They'd used me. And now I wasn't just the forgotten son who funded their life. I was the legal safety net tied to the thing they loved more than either of their kids, that house. I stood up slowly, vision blurry, hands clenched. They wanted to play dirty? Fine. I was done being the ATM. I was done being the scapegoat. I was done pretending this was a family. Because if they wanted a war, I'd give them one. I didn't sleep that night. I don't mean I barely slept. I mean I was fully awake for all 9 hours, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. My body wouldn't let me rest, like it knew something primal had just shifted. And it had. There's this moment, when you realize the people who raised you, the people who should have protected you, nurtured you, guided you, see you as nothing more than a tool. A name to slap onto paperwork. A wallet they could siphon from without shame. That was my rock bottom. I called in sick to work the next day. Not that I was sick in the traditional sense, but emotionally, mentally, I was falling apart. My mind was racing. How did they even get my information? Did they forge my signature? Did I sign something years ago without realizing? I dug through my emails, my texts, my call logs. Nothing. The only thing I could find were old bank transfers. $1,200, like clockwork. No contracts. No conversations about co-signing. Just money sent in silence. Because I thought I was helping. And now I was legally tied to a home I didn't live in. A mortgage I didn't sign up for. A family who'd sell my future to keep their fantasy alive. The next 48 hours were a blur. I called my credit union to see if they had any record of inquiries. I filed a fraud alert with Experian. I made an appointment with a lawyer, someone Mia's uncle recommended. Mia, God bless her, didn't say I told you so. Not even once. She just sat next to me, holding my hand through every call, every document review, every long sigh when I realized this mess was worse than I thought. The lawyer, Mark, was a 40-something ex-prosecutor turned real estate attorney. No nonsense, buttoned up, sharp as a blade. After skimming through what little I had, he leaned back and said, "If they used your name without written consent, it's mortgage fraud. Straight up. And if they forged anything? We're talking criminal charges." My stomach flipped. They're my parents. He looked at me, and I didn't have a good answer. I left his office with a file folder full of paperwork to submit, an action plan, and an overwhelming sense of dread. I didn't want to take legal action. I wasn't some vengeful son looking to bury my parents. But at the same time, they did this. They made choices. They lied. They took my name, my credit, my trust, and leveraged it for their survival without even telling me. And when I confronted them, they gaslit me. "You said you'd always support the family. Don't you remember, Ty?" I remember being 17 and hearing my dad say, "When you turn 18, you're on your own." I remember sleeping on a friend's couch my first year of college because they wouldn't co-sign then. I remember selling my PS4 to cover rent because I couldn't get a dime from home. But now, suddenly, they're framing me as some willing co-signer? I had to be smart. Careful. No impulsive moves. Mark helped me send a certified letter to the mortgage lender requesting all documents related to the loan. A week later, the package came. I opened it at the kitchen table with Mia, fingers trembling. And there it was. The forged signature. Not even close to my handwriting. My name, yes. But the signature? Sloppy. Rushed. Nothing like mine. The date? 9 months ago, during a period where I hadn't even spoken to them for 6 weeks. That was the proof I needed. Mark filed the first report on my behalf and reached out to the mortgage company's fraud department. Things were in motion. Slow, grinding, bureaucratic motion, but motion nonetheless. And still, I felt broken. Not because I was losing money, but because I had lost them. I didn't cry. I couldn't. It was like the part of me that cared had been cauterized. Numb. My childhood memories? The holidays, the school plays, the birthdays? They all felt fake now. Or maybe they had been real, but they didn't outweigh this. This betrayal rewrote the past. It painted every hug as conditional, every smile as transactional. I stopped calling. I stopped replying. I changed my number. Mom emailed me 3 times in December. One-liners. Guilt bombs. We haven't heard from you. Christmas won't be the same without you. You're hurting your father. I didn't respond. Michelle reached out once. Just a text. I'm so sorry, Ty. I didn't know they'd go that far. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I mean it. I believed her. But I didn't reply to that either. Not yet. Instead, I turned inward. Rock bottom has a strange clarity to it. You see who's really in your corner. And more importantly, you start figuring out who you are without them. That's when the rebuilding started. Quietly. Slowly. Without announcements or social media posts. Just the kind of slow, silent work that nobody sees. The kind that actually matters. I stopped sending money to my parents. I canceled the auto transfers. Changed my bank login info. Flagged their accounts with fraud alerts. I kept everything documented, with timestamps and screenshots. Mia helped me organize a binder full of correspondence, bank statements, legal letters. I felt like a detective building a case file on my own family. But I didn't let it consume me. I put more energy into work. I was already a senior systems analyst, but I started pushing harder, volunteering for big projects, mentoring new hires, leading presentations. I stopped phoning it in. I took my frustration and turned it into fuel. I wasn't just trying to cope anymore. I was building. In January, my manager nominated me for a leadership program. By March, I was promoted to director of infrastructure. It came with a 30% raise, a corner office, and the kind of respect I hadn't realized I craved. Not because of the title, but because I earned it. No family favoritism. No handouts. Just sweat equity. Mia and I moved into a bigger apartment. One with an office and a balcony. She surprised me with a reclaimed wood desk and a leather chair that made me feel like an author in a cabin somewhere. It became my space. My sanctuary. I started therapy, too. At first, I was skeptical. What was I going to say? Hi, I'm Tyler. My parents committed fraud, and I can't feel anything anymore. But over time, I started unpacking things I didn't even know I was carrying. That feeling of invisibility. The need to overachieve to earn love. The guilt of standing up for myself. My therapist, Julia, helped me see the difference between honoring your family and being shackled to them. You're not abandoning them, she said. You're just refusing to carry the weight they dumped on you. It hit me like a freight train. For the first time in my adult life, I felt light. Mia and I took a trip that spring, just a long weekend up in Vermont. Cabins, snow, no Wi-Fi. Just board games, campfires, and red wine. One night, while watching the fire crackle, she looked over at me and said, "You seem taller." I laughed. I think I finally stood up straight. You feel different. I am different. But the story doesn't end there. Because one morning, in early June, I got an email. Subject, Notice of Legal Hearing, State of California v. Redacted. It was real. The fraud case had moved forward. My parents had been officially served. A hearing date was set. The details are a blur. I won't get into the court side of it yet, because that's another mountain I had to climb, but the fallout was instant. Michelle called first. I didn't answer. Then she texted. They called me. Dad is furious. Mom's freaking out. What are you going to do? I didn't reply. Then came another message. Ty, he's saying you forged him. That you signed his name to frame him. I'm so sorry. I can't believe this. I stared at that message for a long time. They weren't just doubling down. They were trying to turn it around. Blame me. That's when something broke. Again, but differently this time. Not pain. Not grief. Clarity. Cold, unshakable clarity. They were never going to stop. They were never going to take responsibility. And if I kept waiting for them to change, I'd be stuck forever in this loop, begging for scraps, for fairness, for basic human decency. So I stopped waiting. I opened a blank document on my laptop, created a spreadsheet, labeled it Operation Break Free. Phase 1, Legal Firewall done. Phase 2, Credit Restoration in progress. Phase 3, Public Truth, TBD. I wasn't rushing revenge. I was planning my exit. And maybe, just maybe, something more. Because if they wanted to play games with my name, my signature, my credit, then they were going to learn the hard way what happens when the forgotten son finally takes the pen back. The morning I realized I wasn't afraid of them anymore was eerily quiet. No texts, no voicemails, no new messages in the group chat that I'd muted weeks ago. Just silence. And it was beautiful. I sat on the balcony with a mug of coffee, watching the sun spill over the skyline, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like the story I was living in was finally mine. Not theirs. Not some guilt-laced family drama where I played the role of the loyal, underappreciated son. I'd left that script behind. I was the author now, and I was about to write a very different third act. I called the plan Operation Break Free, but truthfully, that was just phase 1. Phase 2 was something else entirely. I didn't want revenge in the movie sense. No shouting matches, no explosions, no public humiliation just for the sake of it. What I wanted was something quieter, colder, permanent. I wanted them to feel what I had felt, exposed, helpless, discarded. And above all, I wanted control. But first, I needed to understand the full extent of what they'd done. I started with public records. With the help of Mark, my lawyer, we pulled up every document tied to the mortgage and property. The house was technically under both of my parents' names. But a few months prior, just around the time the new mortgage was signed, there had been a co-borrower reassignment, a form that added my name to the loan agreement. Not only had they used my name, they'd embedded me into the entire financial structure of their house, which meant I was now liable for any default or foreclosure. And worst of all, that form had a notary seal that should have been reassuring, proof that someone had verified it. But the notary's name was fake. Mark confirmed it. No such notary was registered in the state. The seal was a fabricated stamp. This wasn't just sketchy, it was calculated fraud. They'd gone to great lengths to make it look real. I remember sitting across from Mark in his office as he tapped the paper with his pen and said, "You don't do this unless you know what you're doing." So they planned it. I asked, voice flat. He nodded. Yeah, they planned it. I leaned back, jaw clenched. I could practically hear my father's voice in my head. It was just a safety net. Liar. Can we use this? I asked. He smiled. We will use this. Mark took over most of the legal side, working to remove me from the mortgage, pursuing damages, and exploring whether we could press criminal charges. But while he focused on the court, I started focusing on something else. My parents cared about 3 things. The house, their reputation, Michelle. 2 of those things were already teetering. The house was now a legal battlefield, and Michelle, well, she wasn't as on their side as they thought. So I made a call. She picked up on the second ring. Ty. Hey, I said. You still in town? Yeah. What's going on? I need to talk to you. In person. We met at a coffee shop near her place. Neutral ground. She looked more tired than I remembered, like someone who'd been living under pressure for too long. She was still dressed like the golden child, blazer, watch, manicured nails, but the shine had dulled. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. I was starting to think you'd never call, she said. I shrugged. Wasn't sure if I could trust you. I get that. I sat down. How much do you know? She sighed. Only what Dad told me, which, according to your lawyer, is about 80% bull. He told you I forged his name? She nodded. Said you were trying to sabotage them, that you were bitter. Do you believe that? She gave me a look. You think I'm that stupid? I didn't answer. She stirred her drink. Look, Ty, I'm sorry. For everything. For not seeing it sooner. For letting them pit us against each other. I don't need an apology, I said. I need your help. She straightened in her seat. What kind of help? I pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. Inside were copies of the forged documents, the fake notary seal, screenshots of messages, bank transfers, everything. This is the full timeline, I said, of what they did, of what they made you believe. She opened the folder, skimming it. Her brow furrowed. She flipped through page after page, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to horror. Oh my God, she whispered. Yeah. She looked up at me, eyes wet. Tyler, this is illegal. This is insane. I know. She pushed the folder back. What do you want me to do? I leaned in. I want you to help me expose them. Her breath caught. Like, to the court? No, I said. To everyone else. Her eyes widened. You want to go public? Not me. I said. Us. That's when I laid it out. The whole thing. The plan I'd been carefully building for weeks. We'd go public. But not in a messy, angry way. We'd do it through a controlled, precise release of information. Start with their community. The country club friends. The church group. They're holiday card recipients. People who believe my parents were model citizens, generous, honorable, pillars of the neighborhood. We'd tell them the truth. But the real punch? We'd let them tell it themselves. Michelle, as the golden child, would call a family meeting. She'd say she was trying to mediate, trying to help us reconcile. And we'd get it on tape. Not secretly, openly. They'd agree, because they'd want to appear civil. They'd think it was a chance to win Michelle back to their side. But the moment they admitted the fraud, or dodged the question, we'd have it. On record. We wouldn't even have to publish it. Just the threat would be enough. And if that didn't work, then yes, we'd go fully public. Emails, social media, legal filings, public records. Everything in one curated, undeniable packet of truth. It wouldn't just ruin their reputation. It would isolate them. Because people like my parents don't survive without admiration. They need it like oxygen. Michelle listened the whole time, nodding slowly. Ty, she said softly, you're serious about this. I'm done playing defense. She looked down, then back up. I'll help. We scheduled the meeting for a Saturday afternoon in late June. Michelle told them it was a chance to clear the air, to come together again as a family. She said I was ready to talk, that I wanted peace. They bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. In the days leading up to it, I prepped everything. Mia helped me rehearse my talking points. Mark lent me a small, high-quality lapel mic for backup audio. Michelle agreed to record on her phone, out in the open, saying it was just so we don't forget what's said. Dad didn't even question it. He was too eager to win the argument. The day arrived. I wore a blue button-up and jeans. Nothing flashy. Calm. In control. Michelle picked me up, and we drove to our childhood home together. That drive was eerily quiet, both of us steeling ourselves for what was about to unfold. The moment we walked in, I could feel the tension. Dad was in the armchair, smug. Mom was pacing. She smiled too brightly when she saw me. Tyler. Oh, you look so good. I nodded. Thanks. We sat down. Michelle hit record and said, just for clarity, I don't want any more he said she said. Dad grunted, fine. Then it began. They started with their version, how they were desperate, how I'd promised to support them, how they thought I wouldn't mind helping because I had so much going for me. Then I asked the question, why did you use a fake notary? Silence. Mom blinked. What? The seal. The notary. It's not real. Dad's jaw tightened. That's ridiculous. It's registered to someone who doesn't exist, I said. We have confirmation. Legal confirmation. Michelle looked at them. Did you fake it? They didn't answer. I pressed further. Did you forge my name? Still nothing. Michelle said, Mom. Dad, did you forge it? And that's when Mom broke. She looked at me, really looked at me, and said, we didn't have a choice. Dad hissed, Sharon. But it was too late. Michelle whispered, oh my God. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just nodded. I stood up, tucked my phone in my pocket, and said, thank you for your time. As I reached the door, Dad stood too. If you go through with this, you'll ruin us. I looked back at him. You already did. And I walked out. It's strange how quiet revenge can be. After all the shouting, all the betrayal, all the unraveling, when the time finally came to act, there was no dramatic thunderclap, no courtroom screaming match, no explosive family implosion in front of a shocked crowd. Just a few carefully placed moves, each one sharper than the last, until everything they'd built came crashing down on its own. And I never raised my voice once. The day after the family meeting, I drove home with Michelle in silence. Neither of us spoke until we were halfway down I-5, the sun bleeding into the horizon like someone had slashed open the sky. Then she asked, are you really going through with it? I looked out the window. They confessed, Michelle. On tape. I don't need to burn the house down, but I'm not letting them stay warm in it either. She nodded slowly. Okay. I think part of her was still hoping they'd come clean, beg for forgiveness, show even a sliver of remorse. But they didn't. They had their chance. And instead of apologizing, they doubled down, like people who truly believed they were owed everything, even my future. So I stopped holding back. Mark filed the final set of documents the following week. With the recorded confession and the forged notary seal, the court fast-tracked the fraud complaint. Within days, the mortgage lender launched a formal investigation. The forged documents alone were enough to void the contract entirely, but the fraud charges? That opened the floodgates. My parents' mortgage was frozen. Their auto payments, which they hadn't made in 2 months, were flagged. The property was moved into pre-foreclosure status, pending legal resolution, and I was officially, permanently removed from the loan. But it didn't stop there. Mark advised we push forward with a civil lawsuit for damages. He told me we could sue for identity theft, emotional distress, credit damage, and even punitive damages. I hesitated at first. I didn't want to look like I was just chasing money. But when I saw the full scope of what they'd done and the risk it posed to my financial future, I agreed. They had played dirty. I was just following the rules. The case was airtight. Their confession, the paper trail, the fake seal, there wasn't much left for them to hide behind. They hired a lawyer, of course, but from what I heard through Michelle, their defense was paper thin. It was a family misunderstanding. He offered to help. It was all blown out of proportion. The judge didn't buy it. In a preliminary hearing, she ruled in my favor. They were ordered to pay over $72,000 in damages, including attorney fees, credit repair costs, and compensatory payments. More importantly, they were forced to publicly acknowledge their wrongdoing in a legal admission, which became part of the public record. That document, I had it framed. I didn't hang it on the wall. That would be petty. But I kept it in a drawer, just to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that the gaslighting didn't win. And it wasn't long before the social fallout began. Their neighborhood, once a tight circle of country club friends and PDA holdovers, went cold. The news traveled fast, even faster when one of their neighbors, who turned out to be very fond of local Facebook drama, posted a not-so-subtle status. Sad to hear about a certain family in our community who committed mortgage fraud against their own child. Protect your credit, folks, even from your relatives. It got over 200 comments. I didn't read all of them. I didn't have to. The damage was done. The church committee my mom chaired, she was removed. The quarterly homeowners board my dad lorded over like he was king of the block, voted out unanimously. Even their Christmas party, the one they hosted every year like it was a royal event, was canceled. No one wanted to be associated with them anymore. And they felt it. They tried to spin it, of course. Mom posted cryptic Bible verses on her Instagram. Things like, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone," and "families are tested through fire." Dad reposted conspiracy memes about cancel culture and family betrayal. But no one engaged. The likes dried up. The comments stopped. They were shouting into a void. Michelle and I talked more after that. Not often, but enough. She told me they'd begged her to come back to the house. She refused. "They keep acting like they're the victims," she said one night. "I can't do it anymore." "Same," I said. We weren't close, not like TV siblings who finish each other's sentences, but we had something better now: honesty. For the first time in our lives, we weren't competing for scraps of affection. We were just two people who'd survived the same fire and made it out on the other side. Then came the final blow. Mia and I got engaged that fall. It wasn't a grand proposal, just a quiet moment on the same balcony where I'd rebuilt myself from the ground up. She said yes, cried a little, kissed me like I'd hung the moon. And for the first time, I realized how grateful I was that I hadn't let my family poison the idea of starting one of my own. We sent out the save the dates in October. Michelle was invited. My parents were not. They found out anyway, of course. Michelle had posted a single photo of the ring, and Mom saw it. She sent an email the next day. Just 4 words. "You'll regret this forever." I read it, deleted it, blocked her address. No reply, no anger, just silence. It was the most powerful response I could give. And on the day of our wedding, surrounded by real friends, chosen family, and the sister who finally chose me back, I stood under the autumn trees, took Mia's hands in mine, and said the vows I wrote the night before. I grew up thinking love was conditional. That support had strings attached. That forgiveness had to be earned with silence. But you showed me something different. You showed me that love doesn't ask for sacrifice. It offers it. Freely, fiercely, and forever. We kissed. People clapped. And somewhere in the distance, the echo of my parents' empire crumbled to dust. I didn't burn their house down. I just made sure they couldn't live in it anymore. And that was enough.